Welcome to Your Worthy Career, a podcast for women in pharma and biotech with me, Melissa Lawrence. I am a certified career and leadership coach with a master's in organizational psychology who has worked in talent and learning development in biotech to large pharma, from non-clinical to commercial. I help women in pharma and biotech create a career worthy of them. Whether you want to get clear on what you want, get a new job, get promoted, or be effective as a leader at any level, this is the place for you. Every week, you will get practical career strategies and mindset shifts to help you overcome the problems you experience at work so you can reach your goals feeling better than ever. Your up level begins now. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to be back here with you today. So I had just come off a month-long break from the podcast. It was the first one I've ever had since I started my podcast in 2020. And today is special because we're not just coming back from a month-long summer break from the podcast, but it's also the 200th episode. How incredible is that? 200 regular episodes. It doesn't even count the bonus episodes or other things I put on the podcast. It's just regular episodes, 200th episode. Now, when I started this podcast, it was just 3 months into being full-time in my business. I've been full-time in my business now for over 4 years, so I was relatively new in my business, and I was a little scared. I didn't even know how to make a podcast. I thought that was only for big famous people. What I wanted to do was to have a way to communicate with you on your schedule, on a digestible commute to work, and more than just written word. I wanted to be able to talk with you, to share my thoughts on the industry and what it's like to be a woman with a career. I wanted to share insider strategies, the tips and actions you could take to better your career and ultimately your life, right? Because when you're unhappy at work, it's hard to be happy in your life. And I really wanted to have this space because working in talent and development and learning and performance for over a decade in industry and longer, if you include my full career in that space, there was always things I wanted to say that I couldn't. I had to kind of only do what was agreed upon through our leadership, through the strategic initiatives. And of course, there's a lot of things I was able to get past and able to create in my roles. I was able to influence really well, but I still had a higher boss, right? I still had higher power that I had to report to that could veto some of the things that I brought to the table. And so I wanted to have a space to just tell you everything without filter so that you knew exactly what you could do to have the career that you want. But it was scary. And listen, with every area of growth that we have, there's always another level. And with each new level, it does get easier to act with courage, to feel confident in new situations. But that doesn't mean that you become immune to the human experience of having feelings. Like you no longer get the butterflies. You no longer have a little bit of hesitancy or anxiousness when you're doing something new. So even though I left my role with AstraZeneca and became a business owner, I then had a new area of growth, visibility. Online, in sharing my thoughts and frameworks, and in believing that if I put out a podcast, people would listen, that I would be able to help people. And because of that belief to do that scary thing that I hadn't done before, here we are at 200 episodes 4 years later. 4 years of just providing weekly strategies and insights for you. And I couldn't be more grateful to have this podcast. And if you go back and listen, all the way back in the beginning, you're going to hear the growth. The podcast name has changed. The confidence in my voice has changed. But the consistency and quality has remained. I have continued to grow, created new concepts, new things to share with you, and you get to see that evolution or listen to that evolution on the podcast. So thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you for allowing me to share what I know with you and trusting me to help you with your career. Thank you if you've reached out to me and shared with me how the podcast has helped you. When I get those messages on LinkedIn or sometimes even on email telling me how an episode helped you get a new job or have a conversation with your boss or get a promotion or stop working so much, it literally means the world to me because that is why I am here. That is why I every week come on and turn on this mic and talk to you. I spend a lot of time identifying topics and putting together each episode for you, and it's a gift, a labor of love. And I just love showing up for you in this completely free way, and I love that you're here listening and that we get to do this together. And the ripple effect is more than we can imagine because this podcast is listened to all over the world. And if you've given a review of the podcast, thank you so much. Reviews aren't just for vanity. They really aren't. It's really to help more people listen to the podcast and find it. Because think about it. If you stumble across a podcast or even a crock pot that you find on Amazon, you're going to look at the reviews, right? It gives credibility to whatever you're looking at so people can decide, is this worth my time? So when you take just 1 minute to write a review or tap the stars, it really does make a difference. It's a way you can help other women in industry get the support that they need. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening and for allowing me to be a voice in your ear, to share new perspectives and to help you grow. I really don't take it lightly. All right, so enough about the 200th episode. Let's get into our main topic today. I thought, why not talk about how to stand out in the industry? When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about for the 200th episode, there was a lot of cheeky things I could do, reviews, best episodes, highlighting guests I've had, different things like that. But I thought, you know what, this podcast was a way that I helped myself stand out in this industry, and why not talk to you more about how you can stand out in the industry? I've talked about it in different flavors before around leadership, thought leadership, opportunity magnet, but let's talk about it in a new way today. So I think this is really just aligned to the journey that I've had in my business and the growth I've also had to stand out and be visible. Because if I wouldn't have done that work, you wouldn't even know I existed necessarily. You wouldn't know this podcast exists. So many people find me from referrals, from friends of friends, from my website, or features that people have written about me that they find on Google or from word of mouth, right? Those are different ways that I stand out or had to stand out. And standing out helps you whether you want to be seen as the best, if you want to be valued and respected, to get a promotion, get a new job, or all of the above. And one thing that is a unique challenge to standing out in pharma is that it is a very competitive industry. You aren't the only talented woman in the industry or in your field. You aren't the only one with a PhD or advanced degree or the certification that you have. So whether you're wanting recognition at work to get to that next level, to get promoted, you need to stand out. You need to be more visible. But how do you do that without sounding like you're bragging at work? How exactly do you stand out? Or without feeling fake, like you're just talking to talk, right? There's all those people that are in meetings that you feel like they just like to hear the sound of their voice. Or how can you stand out when you're already a hard worker? Why can't that just be enough, right? If these are questions that you have or concerns that you have, I totally get it. So I want to break it down in a new way. So you stand out as a credible expert when people know who you are and what you do. When you offer ideas that are new. I talked about this in a recent episode about thought leadership. It's like the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, which sounds a little broski business card like swap situation, right? So here's a different spin on it. To me, it's about cultivating meaningful relationships that are your allies. And you want these allies to be diverse, not just your immediate circle or company, not just your job function or expertise, but other expertise areas too. And you don't need a lot of people. This isn't about having the most connections on LinkedIn or the most people who send you Christmas cards or holiday cards. I want you to focus on quality over quantity, because this industry, another way that it is unique is that it's very well connected. There's always someone that knows someone. So when people say, oh, I'm going to focus my relationships on a specific geographical area or a specific expertise area, I don't really suggest that, because it's really being very narrow in what the potential is for those meaningful relationships. Because people always know people, but also this industry, a lot of people have worked at the same companies, if not at the same time. There's overlap with when they've worked at the same companies. And so you could always meet people through those relationships, and they might not be in the obvious places like the geographical area that you want to work in. So I really encourage you to have an open mind around that. But another way that you can stand out is through your consistency. So there's your network of meaningful relationships that know who you are and your ideas, that trust your expertise, right? Think like former bosses, colleagues, people you've enjoyed working with. But then you need to multiply that by the frequency of your visibility. So how do you get visibility? You get it by contributing to projects at work, posting on LinkedIn, sharing your ideas in meetings, speaking up, meeting new people. It doesn't have to be just one thing. You can sprinkle in different types of visibility. So I had a post on LinkedIn recently where I said, leaders are built one day, one meeting, and one moment at a time. It isn't about the leadership development program you took or the book that you read or the title that makes you the leader. Leaders are really made in how you act in a moment. Each moment, each meeting, each day is a new opportunity for you to be more visible and to be seen as the leader you want to be seen as. Okay? So the secret sauce then is your authenticity. So let's go back to this formula that I just created for you here. We have your meaningful relationships, your network of people who know you, what you do, and your impact. Then you amplify it, you multiply how much you stand out by how visible your expertise is, how visible you are as far as people knowing who you are and the impact that you make. It makes sense, right? So you have to have a network of meaningful relationships that know who you are, what you do, your impact. Then you're adding in consistent visibility moments you're acting from comfort, or maybe you're acting from courage to speak up in a meeting, to share your thoughts on LinkedIn, to meet new people at a networking event or a panel at work. This is what's building reliability and brings awareness to you, to the fact that you exist. You have to have these two things together. So that's why I say that leaders are, and really if you think of standout leaders, leaders are created in moments. It doesn't have to be overwhelming that it has to be this big program or course or title, right? You can decide to have that behavior, that character trait about you in a singular moment, and you can decide in another moment not to. But you want to have consistent moments where you are demonstrating your leadership by speaking up and being visible. Now, if you have meaningful relationships, but you stay in one small circle, and then on top of it, you're not visible with them very often, then you're not going to be top of mind or relevant. But the more visible you are by consistently showing up and being seen for your expertise and who you are, the more top of mind you are, which is going to help people think of you when they have new opportunities, when a job is opening up. They're going to think you're great for a new project or a promotion, okay? Think of it this way. My family likes sweet treats, okay? Like little candies and those small Hershey bars, M&Ms, they get their candy at the holidays and then they end up getting so much, it ends up going into a Ziploc bag, like one of those big gallon ones, and they each have one. And then sometimes we bring it out, we put it in a candy dish, okay? And so I want you to think about it like this candy. So we like the candy. We never forget that we like it. But if we put a bowl of M&Ms on our kitchen island, guess what? We are thinking about those M&Ms more often because they're right in our face. We are grabbing one or two or a handful every time we walk by. And when we're not grabbing it, we're thinking about grabbing it. If M&Ms are on the top shelf of the pantry in that big gallon Ziploc bag, we still like them. We didn't forget, but we forget that they're there. They aren't top of mind. So now imagine you're the M&M. People like you. They know you're amazing. But if you're not on the kitchen counter, if you're not reminding people by being visible, then you're on the top shelf of the pantry. If you're getting passed over for opportunities, for promotions, if you're not getting recognized, there can be other contributing factors, of course, but one factor to consider, it could be that you're just not top of mind. You're just not as visible. Now, there is a third element of this formula, and that is authenticity. You cannot sound like every other person because you're not. Okay, so this isn't hard if you're thinking, oh my gosh, how do I do that? You already are doing it if you're being authentic. Don't put generic language on your resume, say things perfectly curated, or only talk in robotic elevator pitches. Now, for my critically thinking people, which is probably you, because I feel like that's everyone that listens to this podcast, you might be thinking, wait, I have to have original ideas for everything? No, you don't. You can have the same opinion and share it, but share it the way that you would share it, because the way you say it is what is going to draw people to you and help you get noticed. Just like me, I have unique concepts and ideas, I have frameworks I've created, but there are some things I talk about that are grounded in psychology and neuroscience and leadership development and other areas that have already been researched and proven to be true. But the way I say it, the way I explain it, is what you might resonate with. It might be what helps you learn it or pay attention, take notice to it, where you might scroll on by when someone else talks about it. So like my M&M example, I illustrated for you how you can be great but not be top of mind using M&Ms. I just made that up as I went along creating this podcast. It was authentic to me. It was an idea that popped in my head to help demonstrate that example. And it will probably help you remember this concept better because of it. You're going to be thinking of being the M&Ms when you're nervous to speak up or be too visible. Like, do I want to be in the pantry or do I want to be on the kitchen counter? And this is one way that I'm being authentic. I'm showing up consistently on the podcast. I'm sharing new ideas and expertise with the network. I share this with you so you can see how I walk the talk with you and you can see other examples of it in action. Now, the authenticity part is big because all three parts of this formula are important. You have to have relationships, you have to be consistent and frequent in your visibility, and you have to be authentic. If you only have one or two, you won't be as effective. You won't stand out as much. And hear me, you already stand out in parts of your life. You are already talented and accomplished. You don't need me to tell you that. Or even if you do, or if it's nice to hear, there is a reminder. But this is all about the next level, the advanced strategies. If you aren't being seen, you don't feel recognized, or maybe you feel passed over, like your career has stalled, or you're literally just not standing out among the competition, then this is something to consider. Ask yourself, do you have a network of meaningful and strategic relationships that know who you are, what you do, and your impact? Are you visible? Are you speaking up in meetings, in your field, with your boss or stakeholders? Where could you do it more? How could you be more consistent? And are you being authentic? Are you overthinking every word, or are you trusting your expertise? Are you comfortable standing out alone because you might think you want to stand out so you can get the promotion or job or whatever goal you have? But do you really want to? Because I can tell you from experience, when you're the only one saying what you're saying, when you don't have a boss or company or anyone vouching for you, and you're doing new things and truly standing alone, it can feel uncomfortable. And that is usually where I find people struggling with authenticity. It's not that they don't know who they are, it's that they're afraid to be who they are. They're afraid of the judgment. They might feel comfortable with relationship building, networking, and speaking up, but their blind spot is that they're playing it safe. It's too curated, too analyzed. So it's not showing up as authentic, and then it's not standing out at all. So ask yourself, where are you holding yourself back from standing out? What would standing out really look like? You can apply this to everything from what you write on your resume, the conversations you have with your boss, how you answer questions in an interview, how much or little you network or talk to people, the types of jobs you strive for, the level of leadership you surround yourself with. It's all very telling if you choose to do that deep dive within yourself. All right, that is all for this week's episode, the first episode of September, this 200th episode of the Your Worthy Career podcast. I will talk to you next week. Hey, the episode is over. I want to let you in on a secret. There are 4 hidden ways you can use to advance your career as a woman in pharma or biotech that your boss or HR doesn't want you to know about. These are strategies that are proven to work even after you've been told no. Save yourself so much time and advance your career on your terms by downloading the strategies at my website, yourworthycareer.com/hidden. They're completely free. Go get them now.